So welcome to the update this afternoon. We're glad to have everybody here today. And we have a very full agenda, a lot fuller than I expected it to be when I first started developing this. However, I think it's going to be of value and beneficial to everybody. We will try to field questions in the chat box, but of course, if you're on the telephone and you're unable to use the chat box, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we move forward. We'll also have an opportunity for questions at the end of the session. I do want to say that we have a couple of guests with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and move us forward because we do have a packed agenda. And the first person we invited for us today is Miss Ann Bacon, who works with us on the system office team, and she works with the strategic plan. And so I think Ann, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. And while you're doing that, I will pull up the strategic plan that just went recently to the state board.
Okay, wonderful. And by the way, thank you for driving. Thank you. Really appreciate being on this agenda today, especially since it is packed. So JW, I hear you. And I think we're good enough friends that if I start running long, you can, give me some kind of, code and let me know it's time to move on. I get a little excited, but I will try to be brief. So the short answer is I'm very glad to be with you all today. I was really excited as part of our strategic planning process for this strategic plan to have SDAA involved and to have several of you involved in some of our planning teams, etc. And for all of you, if you did not know, our strategic plan was always meant to be a living plan. We actually have as the fourth part of the plan implementation and adjustments. And it just was that before 2020, we really didn't feel the great need to make adjustments. 2020 and now 2021 are proving to be remarkably unprecedented and challenging in many different ways. And at your leisure, you can read some of those reminders, but I think we all know between COVID, between some of the challenges that our society has been facing around issues of race, with some of the challenges that our community colleges are facing with broadband, it has been a tremendously difficult year. So in addition to listing here some themes that President Stith has put before us and mesh really nicely with where we already were realizing we needed to focus. He talks about serving as a first choice for affordable education for all North Carolinians, leading North Carolina's economic recovery and sustained growth, and becoming a national model for diversity and inclusion. So we did include that as kind of the precursor. What you're seeing before you is a plan attachment from the February Strategic Planning Committee meeting of the State Board of Community Colleges. And we will quickly zip through the changes to the strategic plan so you know what is in it and what new themes are being introduced. So thank you, JW. You'll see some things that don't have arrows by them. Those are minor, non-substantive changes while we were making changes. But if you want to scroll down a little bit farther on that page, let's see, we get to our first really more an augmenting. So in this strategy, we were talking about promoting more flexible scheduling and instructional delivery formats. And I know that I'll tell you what, if our colleges haven't been doing flexible scheduling and instructional delivery formats this year, it hasn't been done. But we did want to, spell out, we didn't have the words online learning anywhere in this document, and we felt like that was an oversight. And we really wanted to stress in that robust online learning, and inclusive online learning. So moving to the next change, and I can come back if there's any time for questions. Under our clear and supported pathways goals, we had previously been talking about reducing achievement gaps for underserved students. In the past few years, this plan started in 2018. The term opportunity gaps has come more into play, and I think better captures what we feel is the fact that we believe the onus should be on us to do whatever we can, because in many cases, the achievement gaps that exist are due to structural issues or things that that are sort of beyond that individual's control. And so we did want to recognize that. And similar to online learning, while we always underserved students wanted to recognize our students of color, we felt it was very important to just put that term in there. Maybe there's better language out there. I am always willing to learn, but at least get that concept in there and make sure that we have a specific focus on race, color, ethnicity, those kinds of concepts, and talk about that it is our job to remove systemic challenges and offer targeted supports to that population. I think with our diversity and the systems, diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, that's a really important step toward that.
On the phone. It's on there.
Okay. So we can move on to the next one, and I'll be, again, happy to take any questions if we have any time, or maybe JW can put you in touch with me. Under economic and workforce impact on the, we used a different term for work-based learning, but that's not substantive. On the next page, another thing that we had not focused on in our objective and strategy language was our small business counseling. And given the absolutely critical role that our small business center network plays, particularly right now, I saw just a few days ago that the federal government has rolled out an opportunity for small businesses and nonprofits. They have 2 weeks to apply for this federal funding. So Ann Shaw and her team are madly offering business counseling to those established businesses that are working with us, as well as, of course, the many people who are maybe turning to small business when other opportunities have evaporated for them. Also under economic and workforce impact, there's a new objective here under developing a workforce pipeline for emergency response, pandemic proof, and high demand industries. So there's a lot of ideas in there. We've got everything from, you know, basically the healthcare workforce and the EMS workforce to, you see some specific strategies down here, like our important role in training law enforcement officers. We've had some really important training since May on de-escalation techniques, etc. Going back up to the top, NC Workforce Credentials Framework. While in some ways that's captured in other parts of our plan, because our plan drives action and because our friends like Dr. Kelly and others who come to the board with board items need to say where it is in the plan, we really wanted to spell out these important things and where are the in-demand jobs. Also teacher preparation, that's an increasingly important piece, and the State Board of Education is working very hard and we are working very hard with them. So moving on to, I think we have 1 or 2 more changes. If you go down to system effectiveness, our final goal in the plan, I think there may just be 1 and nope, 2. Okay, so broadband access at North Carolina community colleges, we have been very grateful to have some of the pandemic relief, COVID relief funding come to us, and we've been able to use a chunk of that for increasing broadband access at our rural community colleges. So there was one slug of funding for that. I understand there is a second emphasis on that. And as we're doing broadband access, at the same time, we're working on cybersecurity. So that's tied in there too. And then the final change or addition to the plan, we didn't really take anything out, but the final addition is just making sure that we have all been through so much during this pandemic, during this strange time in our history, and what are the best practices we can learn from this? What are the system needs and what are the gaps in the strategies? So, JW, I turn it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Ann. That was a great review of the updates that have been made to the system strategic plan. And if there's anybody with any questions, feel free to either unmute or put those questions in the chat box, whichever way you feel most comfortable. Okay, I will speak into the silence for a second while people are thinking for a little bit. I did have one thought, Ann, and that is I believe that the strategic plan is available online, and then also the tactics that are updated on a regular basis. Is that on our website? Is that true?
Yes, and after this, if you don't mind me hanging around for a few minutes, I can type those into the chat box.
Perfect, thank you. I think that would be helpful because I think there will be some people that would be interested to have that bookmarked so they can, one, go check out the plan in more detail, and then also see our updates that we on a quarterly basis publish to the website. So, all right. And one last opportunity for any questions for Ann about the strategic plan. Nope. All right. Well, thank you, Ann. Thanks for joining us today. And we will get back to our PowerPoint then. So if everybody can give me a second to do a little clicking and get back to the original PowerPoint. Okay, and in your PowerPoint, the slide deck that was sent out to everybody, that does have Ann's email address there, and Ann's very good at being timely in her responses to anybody that might have any questions or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and move forward through our slide deck. If you're on the phone, we were looking at the PDF that was part of the attachment with the state board code, and now we're back to the slide deck. And we did receive one question, which is on slide number 3, that has to do, that we received through the agenda item requests. And that was basically a question about CARES funding in the second round. Of course, I think we all have lots of questions and would love to get a lot more guidance from Department of Ed and from HERF about the new second round of CARES money and potentially even a third round sometime in the future. And our new student aid expert, Brenda Burgess, is with us today, and she'll be talking about this a little more when we get to her slide. So even though it was a question, we're not going to address it here. We'll take care of that when Brenda deals with her slide here in a few minutes. Well, one thing that we always do, and we're on slide number 4 now, is sometime in the early spring semester, because the SAC-COC meeting in December is so recent, and there's usually a lot of great workshops during that meeting in December, and we usually have several people who have either been reaffirmed or have just finished up their 5th-year report. So I looked on the website and did a little bit of recruiting, and Carteret Community College and Surrey both agreed that they would share a little bit about what their lessons learned were during their most recent experience during reaffirmation or the 5th-year report. And thought we would just give Dana a minute to share what's going on at Carteret, what their lessons learned were from a student services perspective. And then after that, we'll turn the mic over to Sabrina Terry from Surrey Community College. And so, Dana, are you on the line? I didn't check the list to make sure you were able to make it today, but I think you're here.
Yes. Can you hear
All
me?
right. So if you could kind of just share with us a little bit about lessons learned with your all's reaffirmation, and especially from a student services perspective.
Uh, the greatest lesson that I think that we learned as far as from our Carteret Community College is with respect to student services is to document all of those activities that we do as far as student supports, student life, and all those things that just encompass students. Document that during our interview process when the SAC COC team came to the campus to interview us. The key thing is to be honest and forthright. Never trying to make up the information or just try to fudge it. If you don't know the information or you don't have the information or you're unclear, be honest and transparent. One thing about the teams when they come to the institutions, they are coming. They're our peer colleagues, uh, just across the southeastern region of the country, and they're coming to one to be able to learn from us to see what we're doing and see the best practices that we're doing at our respective institutions, but two, be able to provide insights with respect to maybe things that we may not be looking at from our standpoint of things looking. And so just the whole process was just a learning process. And it was just to be just really critiqued by your peers on the things that you're doing. Um, the other thing that 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 I'll share as far as organizing your teams. As you organize your teams, you're starting to do the writing from your areas. It's always wise to have everyone at the table within your respective areas of departments and divisions. That's important because at any given time, when they're coming to visit your campus, they may just pull someone aside and just start asking questions about your area. And it's very important to have everybody at the table and a part of the process so that your institution is all on the same sheet of music and there's people not necessarily communicating a different message than exactly from the work that you all do. And if you don't know something, it's okay to say that you don't know, but if you don't know, refer them to an individual who may be able to give them the answer. Um, the other thing is don't stress yourself about it. Don't stress yourself out about going through the process. Everyone goes through the process, and and at the end of the day, you will be well better served. It'll be a learning experience. One of the things that we did in our quality enhancement plan coming through the process was we developed a map center on campus for mentoring, advising, planning equal success, and that was our quality enhancement plan. And I think us going through that process, it was a real great job because it allowed different components from the campus community to come together, i.e., the instructional side along with the student services side, and were able to work collectively on a sound project that benefits the students. The reaffirmation team and community came down. They were really impressed with the things that we were doing over here at Carter Community College, and they're looking forward to see our results in the upcoming years as far as us putting together a new map center that was associated with our quality enhancement plan. But my greatest thing is to work together as teams, to document your work that you do, i.e., whether it's the programs that you do, if you're doing surveys after programs and follow up to students with programs, log all of that stuff together so that it's together so that when it's time to start putting together, piecing the pieces together as you all start doing the actual writing, you don't have to really search and go to go find those documents and materials. Other than that, when the individuals do come on your campus and like we would have different group meetings with some of the different individuals that came to the campus, and we would just ask them questions. We would ask them what are they doing at their campuses, were their best practices, and you realize that you're just having a relationship and a fair exchange with colleagues that's in our respective areas. That's all I really have for right now. If there's any questions in the chat or something, someone wants me to answer a specific question, I'll be more than happy to do that.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Dana. That's good advice. So while people are kind of compiling their thoughts and maybe getting some questions together if they have any, I'd like to go ahead and turn the mic over to Sabrina and their 5th year report at Surry Community College, and then we'll start fielding any questions if we have any.
Okay, so yes, Surry did just receive their 5th year report letter. And just a couple of things to kind of recap some kind of things that we learned through this 5th year process is one, keeping really good documentation regarding off-campus resources, or those resources and services that you're offering at your off-campus site centers, whether it's a campus or a center. In particular, testing, tutoring, things like that, making sure that you really document, like we do tutoring 1 day a week at one of our offsite centers. And so making sure that we're keeping that documentation up to date and including that information in our reports was important. We did receive, there was only one concern that we had that was outlined in the 5th year letter, and that was about basically us just needing to respond about the absence of any civil rights issues dealing with campus safety or harassment during the 5-year period. And essentially what we've decided as an institution is that's really just a 1-sentence response, that we have not had any, but we needed to make sure that we document that going forward. So again, it really goes back to the documentation piece. And of course, since it was our 5th year, we did not have to meet with anyone. But I would definitely agree with the Carteret that they, when they're here, having the documentation and not overthinking things, I guess. And even when you're writing the report, not overthinking and making sure, of course, that you redact any personal information out of your documents is important as well.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. So we don't have any questions in the chat box. Does anybody have any questions for Sabrina or Dana? You can see that we have their email addresses in the slide deck. So if you do have a question or something comes up, please feel free to reach out to them. This just highlights the importance of our network and how much we can rely on each other to find assistance whenever we run into problems or issues. So thank you, both of you, for being willing to kind of stick your neck out there, so to speak. We appreciate that. I do want to pause, though, here before we move forward, because I know that there were several colleges that were reaffirmed this year or finished their 5th year report. And there were probably several colleges that also participated in the conference in December. So if anybody has, I want to just pause for a minute, if anybody has anything in addition that they would like to share, maybe that they heard at a workshop or that they experienced as a lesson learned that they'd like to share with the group today.
JW, this is Terry Brazier at AB Tech.
Hey,
in addition to what Dana and Sabrina mentioned, I would just encourage everybody to become very familiar with the SAC COC resource manual and to start the process early and often and get broad-based participation. Get to know your SAC COC liaison very well. They're also very much honing in on offsites, but also high school dual enrollment. So become very, very familiar with that policy and make sure you are in compliance with all things dual enrollment, because that is the emphasis recent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Terry serves as an evaluator, I believe, and has served for years on different teams. So we appreciate your expertise, Terry. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other advice or thoughts before we move on to the Student Success Center? All right, well, thank you everybody for sharing, and we will go ahead and turn the mic over to Susan Barvetta. And Susan, I'll drive for you. You just tell me where to go.
Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate the time. Just a few brief updates. Okay, JW. Next slide.
Susan, we're having a little trouble hearing you. Your microphone's got a vibration in it or something.
Okay, sorry. Let me see if I can get closer. That any better?
I think it's a little better. There's still a little bit of feedback with it. Sorry. I think it's Terry Brazier's fault. I had to pick on you, Terry. Let's try again, Susan.
How about now? Any better now?
Oh, much better, much better.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
I cannot figure that out. All I did is unplug my headphones, but okay. Just a brief update here. RISE, the GPA for high school placement is not expiring. However, it is up to a college to determine if they want to stick with the 10-year rule or not. So college decision there. Also with regards to RISE, a handful of colleges, I think we're up to about 7 now, are probably going to engage in a research study with an organization, MDRC. And sorry, please don't ask me what the letters stand for. I can't remember. But they work with the Community College Research Center, CCRC, on projects primarily related to developmental education. And so these colleges will be piloting using a GPA of 2.0 versus 2.2 to place students into credit-bearing courses with a co-requisite. At the same time, we already have running right now, Central Piedmont is running 2.6 instead of 2.8 to determine if that upper bound is really where it should be. We've had a handful of questions about our Career and College Ready graduates, or SURGE. This is the remediation that we provide to the high schools, students that are deemed not career and college ready as juniors, participate in this during their senior year. When they get to the community college, their scores from their SURGE course are used as another form of placement. So it's one of our multiple measures for placement. The workflow is coming soon. Sonia Bartley is working diligently on creating that for us. You know, typical with a lot of the projects that we engage in, there's always some challenges in coordinating all the IT components, but we feel like that will be coming very shortly and hopefully won't be too much of a heavy lift for the colleges to enter those SURGE grades. Just sort of as an FYI, the SURGE courses in high school, the math is exactly the same as the Math Transitions course. That's the MAT 003. And the English course in high school is very, very similar to our English 002. The only difference being that it also incorporates the English 4 high school standards when it's offered in high school. There have been a lot of, going back to one of the questions I see there coming up about RISE, there's been all sorts of rumors floating around. I think every day I probably get 6 or 7 emails. I heard we're going back to developmental education. No, we're not doing that. Dr. Gold will be issuing either an email or a memo any day now, hopefully, trying to clarify that we are still moving forward with RISE right now, although colleges are not required to implement RISE if they choose not to. I mean, 57 of the 58 already are, but Bill Schneider and his team will be collecting data this summer of 2021 in anticipation of full rollout in 2022. But again, Dr. Gold will be issuing an email or a memo clarifying some of the multitude of rumors that are out there. I know you've heard me talk about the Courage to Credit work before. This is our military work. We're still at a standstill. 10,000 credits can be awarded based on military occupation and courses, but until the UNC system office completes the database that they're working on and the training course, we're on hold. They have done a phenomenal job, really excellent work that will make it so easy for our colleges to just plug into this database, type in the course or the occupation and see what course and credits they can receive, the veteran or actually active duty as well can receive credit for. And I say real credits, kind of put real in quotes, not just electives, credits really towards programs of study. And it's really exciting because with some of our programs, those students will be able to enter almost with, a full year's worth of credits. So we're excited about that and working with my future NC on that project as well. We have 5 colleges involved in a single stop research study determining the efficacy of communications on single stop. Both single stop and Aunt Bertha are software platforms that connect students to community resources, college resources, to really help them with all the non-academic reasons that often cause our students to stop out. So 5 students are involved in a single stop, 5 colleges are involved in a single stop study. 5 different colleges are involved in an Aunt Bertha study, and each will be determining the efficacy of the platform and then the ROI between the 2 models. And you may know that single stop has been out there for a number of years, does an excellent job, is pretty expensive. Aunt Bertha is about 5 or 6 years old. We have a system license for that every year, so it's absolutely free to the colleges. And so I think we're about at that point in time where we really need to determine the ROI on the 2 models. The last thing I'll mention here on this slide is that we are starting statewide equity coaches. Dr. Kara Battle out of Durham Tech is running this for the Student Success Center. You were all asked to send the names in, or you could send the names in for 1 faculty and 1 student services individual. We were hoping to get 12 names, and we actually received 90 names. So we had a team evaluate, read all of the applications, letters of interest, and those notifications will be sent out from Dr. Battle. I think some of them actually went out today, and the remaining will go out tomorrow. So we're really excited about that. If your particular institution has not been chosen on this round to have 2 of your own statewide equity coaches, you can still receive services from our other statewide equity coaches. And Kara will be beginning another cohort this fall. So if you didn't make it this time, you can make it next time. Just wanted to share some of the opportunities for professional development. We've included the links on this particular slide. You can also go to the Student Success Center website, which is just NCSSC, North Carolina Student Success Center.org. There's a plethora of information there, including all of the workshops. But a few are just listed right here. We're in the middle of our Guided Pathways series, GPS 100 series, 100 minutes of the best news you'll hear each week, we hope. Great participation in that. We've had between 43 and 45 colleges on every one of those workshops to date. 2 more are coming up, the 23rd of this month and April 6th. Those are the last 2 you see there. The rest have already taken place. Next slide, please. Really excited about this one. March 29th, Amarillo College will be presenting the Creating a Culture of Caring workshop. You can learn how they've gotten their success rates or completion rates to jump from 26% to 45% by creating this culture of caring. And their president, Dr. Russell Lowry Hart, is presenting for the first hour. It's, as you see there, a 2-hour workshop. It's actually 1 to 3:15 because he wanted to take a 15-minute break in the middle there. So we want to make sure we accommodate him, but he is presenting for the entire first hour. And then we'll have 3 concurrent sessions, 1 for presidents and senior administrators that he will lead, 1 by Dr. Kara Crowley, who's their VP of Strategic Initiatives, and 1 from Jordan Herrera, who runs their Success Center. And their Success Center, they call it Resource Center, is where their food pantry, their clothing pantry, their emergency loans, where all of that is housed. And she'll be able to share some great techniques for what they've been able to accomplish there, again, to move those success rates from 26% to 45%. As I mentioned, there's a complete listing of the PD opportunities in the link provided. It actually takes you to the Student Success Center website, to the workshops page, and they cover some of, this is not an exhaustive list, but they cover a lot of these topics as you see here, the equity, the teaching and learning, lots of great advising workshops, some provided by NACADA, career assessment, etc. And I think that's it.
Well, Susan, we do have one additional question in the chat box.
Sure.
Evidently, President Stith mentioned in the Institute for Emerging Issues that single stop membership pricing has changed. and gone
Right.
to $5,500 per year. Is that something you confirm or know anything about?
Yes, that's correct. What the system office did is purchase a system license or system membership. It doesn't really get the system office per se anything other than what it does is it gives the ability for those single stop licenses to be dropped. As you said, JW, I'll have to verify. I think it's for 3 years, but I need to verify the time frame. But certainly for now, that system membership does reduce the cost of single stop. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And the follow-up question was for how long, but of course, that's something you said you just didn't know.
Yeah, I'll verify and get back to you, JW.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Susan.
Sure. Thanks,
Any
everyone.
other questions for Susan? All right, everybody. Thank you, Susan, for
All
being
right,
with
thanks,
us today.
Albert. Good day.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and move on to Brenda Burgess. And Brenda, I'm pretty sure that you're on.
I am.
And go ahead and share some of your information. All right. We're on slide 10 for those of you that are following along on the phone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will not bore you with financial aid or student aid information, but a couple of hot topics that are going on now. HERF2 funding, and I am pretty sure that many of you have seen the announcement that may have come out from Nate Humphrey's area. It was distributed just a little while ago. And to our financial aid community, there may be some information forthcoming around some of the questions that were floating about with the HERF2 funding, and particularly as it relates to being able to award those non-degree continuing education and also dual enroll students. There may be some opportunities available for your institutions to be able to award those unspent the first round of care funding to those students. It talks about how you may be able to apply some of that funding to past due balances. I do anticipate some additional guidance coming from the Office of Post-Secondary Education regarding this. In the announcement, there still is no provision for international DACA students. And I believe there is a webinar coming up on the 9th of March that is being offered through the American Association of Community Colleges. So that may be another area of interest that you would want to take a look at to see if there are some answers to questions that you may have regarding the HERF2 funding. And as Dr. Kelly mentioned earlier, there has been talk of some additional maybe HERF3 funding or CARE 3 funding. Not sure if it will be made available during our summer term or if it will be something going forward for fall 2021. But just want you to be aware of that and have that on your radar. The Governor's Emergency Education Relief or the GEAR Scholarship, that is an additional opportunity for continuing education students to receive funding, and schools can award up to $750 per course. Your school actually has an allocation. If you're not sure about how much money you may have that can be used for continuing education students, use for GEARS, check on our community college system website. There actually is a numbered memo dated September 10th that gives each school's allocation or award amount. And last but not least, Golden Leaf Scholarship. This is another grant opportunity that awards our curriculum students up to $2,250 per year and up to $1,000 per year to continuing education students. We do encourage you all to check with your respective offices, whether it's financial aid that administers or some other area, to make sure that you are spending these funds. We have been asked to request additional funding because we are looking at all ways to any way that we can to make sure that all of our students across the areas, curriculum and continuing education, have the finances that, you know, will help them be able to complete their degrees with as many resources as we can make available to them. I believe that's all that I have. If there are any questions, I'm certainly happy to try to entertain them at this point. I do want to point out that for financial aid administrators, we are in the process, or I am in the process of scheduling a panel discussion so that we can just talk about our best practices and offer suggestions to all of our schools as to how they can best spend the CARES money and make sure that our students across the board are being able to take advantage of those funds. So any questions that you may have at this time, I'm certainly open to answer.
All right, thank you, Brenda. We appreciate that. Any questions for Brenda? I think the only comment that I will make is I remember with the first round of the HERF funding, it was very frustrating, I think, for all of us to try to get answers from the feds regarding what is permissible and what is not permissible. I also remember that there was a plethora of agencies that wanted to get in front of all of this and provide their interpretation. And some of their interpretations were right and some of them were wrong. So just as a friend to everybody, I just want to remind everyone that kind of keep a grain of salt available for when you get guidance and interpretations from agencies other than Department of Ed or post-secondary education, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that will be holding us accountable if they're for whatever accountability there might be in the future. So I know that we're wanting to move forward and help students as quickly as possible. Just keep that grain of salt available as you hear guidance from anybody other than the feds.
And I'm glad you said that, Dr. Kelly, because the information that has come out has actually come from NASFA. And I do know that, you know, they may interpret just a little bit differently. So I would encourage everyone to kind of wait until we get that official word from the Office of Post-Secondary Education or Department of Ed.
So just something to remember as you're progressing through this leadership challenge. At least in my mind, it's a leadership challenge because you don't have all the information you wish you had to make the decision for whatever is best for your students and your institution. So thank you, Brenda. We appreciate that. We appreciate your work. At this time, we'll go ahead and move to slide number 11, and that's JJ Evans. So JJ, what you got for us?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope this message finds you all safe and well. I wanted to give an update regarding our Student Leadership Development Program. As many of you know, last year we had to place our program on hold just due to COVID and the timeline of when we were scheduling our program for the upcoming year. This year we are going to reinvigorate our program, and I'm delighted and excited because we partnered with the Center for Creative Leadership in Greensboro to provide a synchronous experience for students that will be delivered over the summer, 8 weeks over the summer. And we are looking for each college to nominate students to particularly go through this experience, as well as some of the other training that our staff will be providing. And applications should be in your inboxes sometime within the next week or so.
All right, thank you, JJ. Any questions for JJ? Not hearing any. I do see where Michael Jordan put a post in the chat box. Michael, if you're able to unmute yourself, would you like to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Chapter National Council on Black American Affairs, excuse me.
Yeah, yes, sir. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, sir. The Eastern North Carolina chapter will be kicking off a membership drive. And as a part of that, we will be honoring Women's History Month. And we'll have Dr. Pam Senegal and Dr. Sandra Williams speaking. And this is a drive for membership. We'll be starting out our task come July 1st, but this is just to get wet everybody's whistle and get everybody excited about joining the Eastern chapter. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Yes, sir, no problem. Glad to know that that is moving forward. And if anybody needs more information about that, please feel free to email Michael Jordan at Edgecombe Community College. So thank you, Michael. All right, Monty, I believe you're up next.
It is my turn. Yes, it is. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. If you recall, right before the pandemic hit, we were kicking off a series of strategic enrollment management trainings or professional development for the system. We're going to go ahead and kick that off again. We are sorry that it kind of died down a little bit. We had a couple of sessions during the summer, but starting in March, we're going to ramp it back up and try to have something every month for you. The first session that we're going to offer will begin on March 25th. I just sent a calendar out to everyone. I'm getting dings, so I know you're getting it. It's going to be the Psychology of Strategic Enrollment Management Plan. And so we're going to have sessions every month on strategic enrollment. And so when I put it out there, if you have any questions or concerns or anything that you want to see as an institution or individual within enrollment management, please let me know and we'll try to offer it. In addition to that, the Strategic Enrollment Management Task Force, which consists of representatives from many of the colleges, deans, vice presidents, directors, PIOs, financial aid, different areas. We're going to provide consultations to the colleges during and after the professional development. So if your institution wants us to come out and look at your enrollment management plan or help you create one or modify yours or make yours a little stronger if you think it needs to be, let us know. And that's one thing we're going to do as a task force. So if you want someone to come out and say, just, one thing we're looking at is in enrollment management is all your different departments or divisions communicating well with each other. Is everyone on the same page as it relates to enrollment management? Who's involved in enrollment management. So if you need us to come out and do those services for you, just let us know and we'll start that. In addition, CFNC will start offering training on Cross Connect this month. There are going to be two different categories for that training. It's going to be new admissions people, administrators who want to go through the whole process of Cross Connect, from the admissions application to pulling down reports from the admissions application. And then there'll be something for seasoned admissions folk, where the representative from CFNC is going to provide an update on changes to CFNC. So if you're seasoned, I would please implore you not to attend the new session, because we're trying to save as much space as possible for new admissions folk to join that session. Last but not least, we're going to also offer RDS training. That training will be on March 16th, 2021. And we're in the process of planning that training now. So if you have anything that you want to see in that training prior to the 16th, please send me an email and I'll send it to those of us who are planning that training.
All right, thank you, Monty. I appreciate those updates. Appreciate the work with SIM. Any questions for Monty Hickman?
Please ask.
All right. Not hearing any, but feel free to give him an email if you have any questions or think of something. Next up, we have Trudy Hughes. Trudy, what you have for us?
Hello there, everyone. The first thing that we have up is I'm very excited to announce that we have the mental health first aid instructor training. We have 3 separate trainings scheduled, and the funding was approved by the state board. So people do not have to pay for this. but it is a commitment. It's very expensive, but we were awarded some money to be able to provide this. So I encourage everybody to think about this. I sent out a survey to find out the interest on the specific dates. And the first training is, you only have to attend one, March 24th through 26th, excuse me, back up. Each training is 3 days, okay? The second one is in April 19th through 21st, and then the third option is June 14th through 16th. You need to apply first, fill out the survey, and then I'll send you the application for the March date. It's coming up pretty quick. The cutoff is March 8th. So after that date will no longer be available for people. For April's date, the cutoff date is March 31st, and then for the June date, the cutoff date is May 26th. So just so you know, there's like I said, it's a lot of commitment. Participants must commit to the entire training, and then there's also there's 8 hours of pre-work that has to be done. But what we're trying to do is spread this across the state. So we want every possible community college to be have a mental health first aid instructor. We have 50 slots, and so we'd like to spread that evenly across the state to all our community colleges as much as possible. And once you apply does not mean that you necessarily are granted to be a trainer. We look at the roster and to make sure that they are evenly distributed. And I am contacting colleges to make sure that they prioritize who they want, because we can't have colleges that have 5 to 10 people that are applying. We need to, like I said, equally distribute that. The second thing that I have is the Disability in a Week conference. This year, because of COVID, we're doing it instead of meeting in person for an entire day. We're going across 4 days. Obviously, all sessions will be virtual, and the dates are June 7th through 11th, and we're only doing 1 hour increments. I don't know about you guys, but I've been on the computer all day long, and I'm kind of getting Zoom fatigued. So being on 2 different conferences, so we're just doing 1 hour across 4 days. I sent out a save the date flyer, and then we'll have more information about the agenda once we get closer to that date. But we will have our very first day on June 7th. We will have our representative from OCR to give us some updates. And then lastly, our Title IX webinars. We have scheduled Josh Whitlock. He is with Jackson Lewis, formerly Parker and Poe, and he has agreed to do some presentations for us, and he's going to do our first one on March 17th. And he's going to talk about maybe anticipated changes with the Biden administration with the Title IX and what to expect. And then also some future training opportunities to make it more relevant to everybody in the field. We're also going to have Juliet Grimmett from the Chrysalis Network to provide a webinar in April. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and she's going to provide some information on that. And then we also are going to do a Q&A with Josh Whitlock and Sarah Ford Nor on May 19th. And then we'll continue to plan accordingly. I sent out a survey and still getting results from that to find out what the training and professional development needs are for Title IX. So, Dr. Kelly, that's all I have for now.
All right. Well, thank you, Trudy. I appreciate those updates. We did have one question in the chat box, but I think I can answer that one. And if I'm wrong, you tell me, please. The idea with the mental health first aid instructors is that the envision is that they would provide professional development on your campus for faculty and staff. So if you have an instructor on your campus, then you'd be able to provide that PD for free to your campus. However, we are working in partnership with Nate Humphrey with Workforce Continuing Ed to attempt to develop a course specifically for mental health first aid. That training could also be provided to your community and to business and industry and those type of things. So that way, because there may be business and industry interested in that training. We're going to do our best to attempt to have an instructor available at every campus, even though we only have 50 slots. And the way we're going to attempt to do that is we know that some campuses already have instructors on their campus. And so campuses that do not have any instructors available, they'll get priority. And so sadly, we only have enough money for the 50 slots. So that's the best way that we can just figure out how to manage that. We do have a couple other questions, Trudy. One is, do we have a time for the March 17th session with Josh Whitlock?
I believe it's at 2 o'clock, but I have not sent out that invite yet
Okay.
because I'm waiting for him to send me the title and his PowerPoint. So, and so you have not missed anything for an invite at this point, but I believe he wanted it at 2 o'clock.
Excellent.
And then to back up just real quickly with the cost with mental health first aid, participants, the only cost a participant would have to pay, not the trainers, this training sessions are free, but then once they get their classes together, it's just the cost of a textbook, and that's usually $20.
Okay.
And that's at minimal, and colleges are figuring out how to pay for that without a student or faculty have to pay for that themselves out of pocket. So
Okay.
we are working with that, but that's the only cost for somebody attending the mental health first aid, not as a trainer though. Okay.
Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
We'll go ahead and move on to Jennifer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to provide some clarification on the role of coaches across our state. This recently came up in a conversation, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to tackle this subject. Many of you have success coaches and career coaches on your campus, so I just wanted to kind of talk about these and clarify these roles. For the success coach, these could be ones that are embedded with your faculty. It could be First in the World had success coaches. It could be MMSI success coaches. Generally, those coaches are serving the college population, just serving the college students. And they are usually tasked with serving the student holistically, you know, while they are doing early alerts and things like that. Also, getting them in contact with non-academic needs, like if they have food insecurity or anything like that, that would be the role of the success coach. The NC Career Coach is going to be different. They are governed by legislation, and I've linked that in the slides so that if you wanted to view that later that you could. And they are serving high school students. They are embedded in the high school. They do have offices at the community college, but they're predominantly located in the high schools and non-COVID times, of course. But these coaches are primarily focused on really assisting those high school students with their career track, what it is that they want to do, walking them through assessments, and if their interests align with a pathway that the college is offering, then they help the student with the paperwork and figuring out what information is needed, kind of giving them information sessions about different pathways that are offered at the college. So they are significantly different, and I wanted to just provide that clarification. If anybody has any additional questions, of course you can contact me through email, but I'll also be looking at the chat box to answer those as well.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate that. It seems like we have a variety of positions labeled coaches across the whole state. So hopefully that was helpful to understand what we mean by those different terms at the system office. Any questions for Jennifer about the career coaches, success coaches, or advising? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Jennifer. Thank you for the update. And everybody, I'm aware that we're coming up on the 4 o'clock hour, and I appreciate your patience. I guess I was definitely too ambitious for this presentation today. And so thank you for bearing with us. Just a couple of quick updates from me this afternoon. I wanted to make sure that you saw the emails that came from John Harris regarding some of the State Board of Community College updates and especially State Board code changes. And you can see those highlighted on slide number 15. I won't go over each of those. Just want to make sure that you were aware that those were happening. They're either in process or they're open for public comment. If you have any detailed questions about those, please feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to do my best to answer your questions, or I'll get with John and he can try to answer your questions as well. Also, now on slide 16, we do have a new president of the system, President Thomas Stith, and he has made some changes to some of the senior leadership at the system office. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. John Harris, who served as the general counsel, is now the chief of staff, and we are still in the process of hiring a general counsel to take his place, so he'll be serving in both roles here for a little while. And then you can see there that there's a variety of other different positions that have been hired. The other one I thought that I should update for everybody is that the Director of Government Relations is changing, and that Margaret Shuping has left to work with the State Education Assistance Authority. And I felt like that a lot of times the Chief Student Development Administrators, we reach out for her for government relations advice, and wanted to make sure everybody was aware of her departure and of Alex's impending start date, I think here in a couple of weeks or so. So last but not least is I just want to remind everybody about the Student Services Leadership Academies that we're trying to keep going even during the pandemic. Our idea with the Student Services Leadership Academies are there to help you grow your leadership at your institution, either for new or future managers and leaders. And then we also, as you've heard today, provide a variety of professional development opportunities through webinars and ongoing meetings to help meet more of those hot topics and ad hoc needs. The last slide here, slide number 18, reviews our upcoming dates. Our next meeting is on April 6th at 3 o'clock. And this slide will let you kind of plan out into the future what meetings to expect. So last but not least is your student services team here at the system office, and all of our contact information. I will now be quiet and pause briefly to see if you have any questions, if you'd like to unmute to ask any questions or put any questions that you may have in the chat box. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being patient with us today as we tried to cover a broad range of topics for everyone. We appreciate what all of you do to serve your students, and we'll continue to strive to serve you as you engage in that vision and those efforts. Friends, please stay safe and stay healthy, and have a great afternoon.